The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot, and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
All right, good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Tuesday, January 22nd, 2013, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world, and it's got to be a breaking news day because I didn't even have time to put on my shirt and tie. You're just going to have to deal with the Boise State sweatshirt today, folks. We got all sorts of news to get to. You've probably heard the breaking news story. The U.S. Federal Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia has rejected the petition by Americans for Safe Access and plaintiff Michael Krawitz for the DEA to reschedule marijuana to a more medically appropriate schedule. Yes. Michael Krawitz will be joining us. The plaintiff in the suit will be joining us at 5:30 today. He's going to be calling in with his reactions to the DEA decision there, actually the federal court decision in favor of the DEA that decided that they were not arbitrary and capricious in relegating marijuana to a Schedule 1 prohibition. We'll talk about that in Behind the Headlines as well. I'll give you a look at the explanation from the Federal Bureau of Obfuscation's Dr. Vinny Boombots will be joining us with his take on this. Also on today's show, at the end of the show, we've got Anthony Taylor calling us. He's from the Oregon legislature. He's lobbying the Oregon legislature. He's going to give us some updates on what's happening in the state of Oregon with medical marijuana and possibly marijuana legalization at the state legislature level. We'll get to that as well. It's also Daily Toker Tunes today, our Electric Tuesday tune, and we're going to get a new tune from a new group. It's called Terra Lumina, and it's put together by the guy who does the Symphony of Science videos that we like to play so much here. This is actual music, though, not auto-tuned scientists or anything, but new music with a science base to it. The song for today, I think, is rather appropriate. It's called The Tree of Life. But before we get to all of that, we got our 420 radio news with a look around the states, including Oklahoma marijuana bills, Texas marijuana bills, New Hampshire marijuana bills, a possible Supreme Court case that could decide privacy rights on open land. Washington's governor is in D.C. to discuss legalization of marijuana and how the feds will react. We've got some quarterly reports from Medical Marijuana Inc. and a couple of sad stories of patients getting robbed at gunpoint. If we don't get to all of it in hour one, we'll take it all into hour two, Toker Talk Radio, where you can be the voice of the marijuana nation at 971-533-7111. This is the Russ Belville Show. Stay tuned.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
The March issue of High Times magazine is here, just in time for playoff season in the National Football League. But did you know that NFL players who use pot receive the toughest penalties in sport? In our March 2013 issue, High Times investigates the NFL's wrong-headed policies and examines how pot can help athletes off the field. We also tee up an outstanding profile of one of the world's greatest strains with the haze craze. Senior cultivation editor Danny Danko weighs in on the origins of this outstanding sativa. And editorial director Dan Skye takes a high-minded look at the outdoor harvest of 2012. Growers are getting higher prices for the product and strains are better than ever. Plus, we'll take you inside of one of the most unique gardens you'll ever see, a state-of-the-art underground bunker that allows growers to create the perfect environment for pot. Also in this issue, Saturday Night Live's Jason Sudeikis drops by to talk about his new film, Movie 43. And guess what? Jason likes pot. Plus, we cover the most important story of the year. Pot is legal in Colorado and Washington. Pick up the March issue of High Times magazine for the very best marijuana coverage on the planet. Be part of the growing cannabis community. On newsstands now.
Warning. Neil deGrasse Tyson may grab you off the street at any minute.
I know that the molecules in my body are traceable to phenomenon in the cosmos. That makes me want to grab people in the street and say, have you heard this?
This is Normal Show Live.
You want to legalize it? Call your congressman today. 202-224-3121. It's free, it's easy, and you don't even have to give your name, just your zip code, and they'll hook you up to your congressman. Call 202-224-3121 and tell Congress you support marijuana legalization.
Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. That's what you got to do. Liberate your mind.
Now it's time for your 420 radio news for Tuesday, January 22nd, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. Oklahoma medical marijuana and decriminalization bills have been filed. This in a report from the Marijuana Policy Project. State Senator Constance Johnson has filed separate bills to establish a medical marijuana program in Oklahoma and to reduce the penalties for possession of small amounts of marijuana. SB 902 directs the State Board of Medical Licensure and Supervision to develop and adopt rules that allow individuals with debilitating medical conditions to use marijuana with approval from their physicians and to establish fees for the licensing, production, distribution, and consumption of marijuana for medical purposes. SB 914 would reduce the maximum penalty for possession of up to 1.5 ounces of marijuana from a maximum of 1 year in jail and a fine of $1,000 to a maximum of 10 days in jail and a fine of $200. Austin lawmaker files medical marijuana bill from trailblazersblog.dallasnews.com. Representative Elliot Nastat, Democrat of Austin, has filed a bill that stops well short of legalizing marijuana, but still provides a medical excuse to avoid punishment. Under his bill, a person arrested for marijuana could enter evidence that their doctor gave instructions that the use of the drug could provide benefits for their illness. It also provides protections for physicians who tell or write instructions to their patients that recommend marijuana use. Patients whose doctors make such statements could present that evidence and have their charges dismissed. New Hampshire bill ties drug testing to welfare from Newsmax.com. New Hampshire lawmakers are considering a bill that would tie drug testing to welfare assistance, although one sponsor of the measure insists the aim is to identify people who have problems, not to take away benefits. According to the New Hampshire union leader, the bill requires all applicants for federal temporary assistance for needy families to submit a clean drug test to receive benefits. Republican State Representative Donald LeBrun, a key sponsor of the measure, said, quote, "I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone who qualifies. I'm trying to identify people who have drug problems and have them treated," end quote. LeBrun says his bill isn't designed to punish anyone because if an applicant is denied benefits after a positive drug test, another adult in the family could be designated to receive benefits instead, if that person also passes the drug test. The bill, however, would disqualify applicants from the program for a year after a positive test. To requalify, they would have to complete a substance abuse program. Cultivation case could limit DEA surveillance tactics from hightimes.com. What appears to be just another DEA busting rural growers story could eventually become a significant Supreme Court case that may limit the DEA's powers of surveillance over marijuana cultivation on private property. The case began in May 2012 in Marinette County, Wisconsin. A fisherman was allegedly told by two other men to leave the property and became suspicious. A month later, a logger allegedly stumbled upon a pot garden containing more than 30 plants, prompting the DEA to investigate. Without obtaining a warrant, the DEA brazenly entered the property and installed video surveillance cameras. A federal judge dismissed a motion to suppress the evidence, ruling that the DEA was legally permitted to install video cameras without a warrant because an open field is not protected by the Fourth Amendment's guarding against unreasonable searches. Attorneys are prepared to take this case to the Supreme Court based on the fact that there were visible no trespassing signs on the property, with which comes the expectation of privacy. Officials are discussing Washington's marijuana law from the Seattle Times. Washington Governor Jay Inslee and State Attorney General Rob Ferguson are meeting with U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder today in Washington, D.C. to talk about the state's legal marijuana law. Inslee and Ferguson plan to tell reporters about the meeting in an afternoon conference call. And on Tuesday night in Olympia, the Liquor Control Board is holding the first public hearing on rules that will govern legal marijuana sales. Voters approved the law in November as Initiative 502. More public forums are planned Thursday in Seattle, February 7th in Vancouver, February 12th in Spokane, February 19th in Mount Vernon, and February 21st in Yakima. Medical Marijuana Inc. reports fourth quarter 2012 revenue. They announced their fourth quarter earnings of approximately $3.39 million on gross revenues of $5.1 million for the quarter ended December 31st, 2012. This represents a gross revenue increase of over $2 million compared to the prior quarter, and compared to last year, an increase of $4.5 million, which is at 1,100%. And that's your 420 Radio News for today, Tuesday, January 22nd, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines on today's breaking news story of a federal court of appeals rejecting Americans for Safe Access and Michael Krawitz petition to have marijuana rescheduled out of Schedule 1. Michael Krawitz joins us at 1:30. You're listening to 420radio.org. We'll be right back. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. Or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while. Share.
Welcome back, everybody. Time for us to go behind the headlines. And of course, today's breaking news story is of the Federal Court of Appeals ruling that the DEA was not at all arbitrary and capricious in denying the rescheduling petition from Americans for Safe Access and our good friend Michael Krawitz. Now, yesterday, I wrote a piece about Martin Luther King Day, and in it, I referenced a call for unity This was the letter that was written by the 8 white clergymen in Alabama calling on the Negroes rallied by Dr. King to stop being so uppity. I paraphrase. Part of their plea for Dr. King to call off the nonviolent marches for equality and justice was this point. When rights are consistently denied, a cause should be pressed in the courts and in negotiations among local leaders and not in the streets. We appeal to both our white and Negro citizenry to observe the principles of law and order and common sense. Well, today, Americans for Safe Access and our friend Michael Krawitz were once again consistently denied their rights to use marijuana medicinally, in accordance with the law and order that has been established in 18 states and our nation's capital, and in defiance of all common sense. In this case, at least, the judges did rule that Michael Krawitz had standing. Previously, they just dismissed the petition because nobody petitioning could actually prove federal denial of medical marijuana would harm them. So, where's our Dr. King? Where do we march? I'm so frustrated by this decision, I can't even address it seriously. I must put on my satirical hat. I must throw some sarcasm in it. So I reached out to my contact at the FBO, the Federal Bureau of Obfuscation, Dr. Vinny Boombots, PhD, for an explanation. And this is what Dr. Boombots had to say. At issue here is a petition for the Drug Employment Administration to reschedule marijuana from its current Schedule I status. The judges ruled that the DEA's scheduling of marijuana is not arbitrary and capricious. The DEA, it seems, has solid factual reasons for banning all marijuana use, and by so doing, in no way accountable and ruled by political whim. As we all know, Schedule I drugs meet these conditions. A. The drug or other substance has a high potential for abuse. B. The drug or other substance has no currently accepted medical use in the United States. C. There is a lack of accepted safety for use of the drug or other substance under medical supervision. Drugs in Schedule I include heroin, lysergic acid diethylamide or LSD, marijuana or cannabis, 3,4-methylene dioxymethamphetamine or ecstasy, methaqualone, quaaludes, and peyote, or as Dr. Hunter S. Thompson used to call them, the usual. Thus, cancer patients smoking a doobie to ease the pain and retching of chemo are a lot like the junkie in Train Spotting, the merry pranksters, your average rave, a shaman on a spirit quest, and whoever it is who could still find lewds. Now, I know, you're all screaming, there are 18 states that accept the medical use of marijuana. Well, as far as the federal courts are concerned, it just ain't so. See, the Federal Department of Health and Human Services told the federal DEA in this federal court that marijuana lacks a currently accepted medical use in the United States. Those 18 states and the city where this federal court decision was made merely refuse to prosecute people who break Schedule I marijuana laws if they have a note from their doctor saying it might help their medical condition. Those states don't officially recognize marijuana's medical value. Oh, wait. Some states, like Oregon, do? They do officially recognize medical value? Well, do their doctors prescribe marijuana? Aha! No, they don't. See? Marijuana has no accepted medical use in the United States. Oh, that they can't prescribe because the DEA would revoke their license? Right. Because marijuana is a Schedule I drug with no medical value in the United States. We can't let doctors prescribe that. But there's 4 patients in a federal program getting federal medical marijuana from the federal government's federal medical marijuana farm in Mississippi? Nope, sorry. That's an investigational program that was discontinued. Those patients were grandfathered in, and there's no evidence that we've never investigated that marijuana has any medical benefit for them. Wait a minute. I know, you're going to say the federal government has patent number 6630507 on the medical value of marijuana. Yeah, we do have a patent on one of the molecules in marijuana that we can someday put into a pill, spray, or inhaler and sell at a high profit markup to insurance providers and Medicare. Not some crude plant you can grow at low cost at home with lots of molecules in it that work synergistically and have never caused a fatal overdose. Now, come on. I know you're saying that the federal government's known since 1974 that THC can cure cancer, and that there's 11,734 published studies on cannabis and another 6,599 on THC in the federal government's PubMed database. Well, calm down. The federal government's very interested in the medical efficacy of molecules and compounds that can be derived from marijuana and put into patentable pills like Marinol and sprays like Sativex and inhalers that we're still working on. So much so that we rescheduled Marinol pills down from Schedule 2, like cocaine and meth and OxyContin, down to Schedule 3, like Vicodin, testosterone, and steroids. Hold on. You mean the dronabinol pills that contain 100% synthetic THC? Exactly. 100% THC suspended in a sesame oil capsule has a medical use, lower abuse potential than cocaine and meth, and can be used safely when supervised by doctors. You see, 10% to 25% THC suspended in a plant flower with a whole bunch of other cannabinoids has no medical use, even when supervised by doctors, because it's as likely to be abused as heroin. It's really quite simple. Patents make molecules safer. That, you might think, is one of the most capricious and arbitrary things ever said. No. It is not. For we have actually suggested that natural THC harvested from pot plants should be listed at Schedule 3 if it's extracted by a corporate person making pills, but it should remain at Schedule 1 if it's grown by a natural person to roll joints. I hope this clears up any confusion. Satirically yours, Dr. Vinny Boombots, Ph.D., Assistant Adjutant Administrator of Annoying Acronym Acquisitions, Office of Disinformation, Federal Department of Obfuscation.
Wow, that was almost a little ranty there.
It's all clear now. It all makes perfect sense.
Well,
patents make molecules do magic.
Okay, then.
Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
You know, I've been playing rock and roll for a lot of years, and I've done it all. Now I do it without drugs. Hey, don't get me wrong, I still party with the best of them, but now I do it clean. You know, I'm on top of everything I do.
It's quite simple. I'm a very nasty drunk. I get mean. I get loud. I'll tell your deepest, darkest secrets to a stranger, and I'll puke on your shoes. So, if that's the kind of behavior that this culture promotes, fuck it.
Your one-room schoolhouse of choice. Your one-stop freedom shop. It's the Libra Lounge.
Sundays at 3 right here on 420radio.org.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
Well, if you liked our visit from Dr. Vinny Boombots, you can pick that up. It's written up at my blog, radicalruss.com. Feel free to tweet, Facebook, and share that all you like. But really, like I said, sometimes it's hard to satirize this stuff, because that's what they really believe. And if you go through the court cases and all the steps that it took to get to this place, everything I said in that little routine was the actual decisions, was their reasoning. If you accept the initial premise of something, then all of the decisions that follow after that can be completely logical, can make perfect sense internally. except for, not accepting the initial premise. Anyway, again, RadicalRuss.com if you'd like to get a little bit of that. Let's turn over now to our Electric Tuesday Daily Toker Tunes, and today we're going to listen to some new music. I just bought this album, as a matter of fact. It's the new album from Terra Lumina, and Terra Lumina is a project that's put out by Melody Sheep. If that name sounds familiar to you listeners out there, it's because we play a lot of Melody Sheep's music. The videos that he makes from Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye the Science Guy, and so forth, where he auto-tunes them. Well, he's now come up with a real, I shouldn't say real, but a different musical project, a not auto-tuned, let's put it that way, not auto-tuned musical project, where he's enlisted the help of a vocalist and composed some music and lyrics that, once again, emphasize scientific method and reason. So that's the kind of stuff we're into here, especially on Tuesdays. We're going to start with this track, the 9th track on the album. I believe it's more probably about evolution and such, but it kind of serves a dual purpose here for us on 420 Radio. It's Terra Lumina with The Tree of Life.
It all started with a molecule 4 billion years ago in the early open oceans and tide pools. Before the life that we have come to know, insects, trees, and animals, life began in a soup of chemicals. If you let millions and millions of years pass, through the tree of life you'll come to us at last.
Evolution takes its time and slowly works its wild ways with endless beauty. Evolution tells the greatest story. It's the way all life on earth has come to be.
A simple start to everything a single cell would come to bring trilobites and other living things. In the time of Cambrian, life saw an explosion. Single-celled to multi-cell, and multi-cell to animal, and animals began to crawl the land. If you let millions and millions of years pass, through the tree of life you'll come to us at last.
Evolution takes its time and slowly works its wild ways with endless beauty. Evolution tells the greatest story. It's the way all life on earth has come to be.
Then came the dinosaurs with dominance and mighty roars, who ruled the land for 100 million years. Then came an asteroid, and almost all life was destroyed. Ancestors of you and I, the people you have grown to know, and finally arrived. With our eyes and with our minds, we learn so many things. Look deep within our past to learn of how we came to be. Pass through the tree of life, you'll come to us at last.
You still don't get it, do you? Alright, let me make this as clear as I possibly can. This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
Jive, marry, grifo, grass, hay. Technically, it's cannabis sativa, the common name, marijuana. She has found a crutch to see her through her difficulties instead of facing up to them and coping with them. And in time, she may be ready to try something different, something better.
Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is 30 past the hour, and joining us today is the man at the heart of the petition and lawsuit that was rejected today by the D.C. Court of Appeals. Michael Krawitz is on the phone with us, and let's see if we got him here. Michael, can you hear us okay?
That's it. I can hear you.
All right, Michael, welcome to the show. So I called you earlier today, and apparently I was the first one to let you know that you'd lost your case today. What's your reaction?
Well, stunned, I guess, a lot like you, just somewhat stunned. Thinking about it, actually just, kind of over the last few minutes here, it's interesting subtext, because if you remember, my argument personally for standing was that I was hurt by the marijuana prohibition, in that as a disabled veteran, I have to leave the VA hospital and go down the road and duplicate a lot of the same medical, general medical stuff to get a medical marijuana card, right. And that they never intended for that. The veterans are supposed to get their medical care, all of their medical care at the VA. They met all their medical care. So the interesting subtext to this, evidently they accepted that argument for standing, which is interesting that they've accepted that there is some harm from this marijuana prohibition. That's kind of a subtle thing, but nonetheless, that's what's held up. In a way, this standing thing has held up the petition for years, and we did get past standing, only to get shut down in the next phase. But a significant victory in and of itself, I think.
Yes, and if I remember correctly, in the there's a 3-judge panel, and a judge appointed by President Carter and a judge appointed by President Clinton found that you had standing, but the judge appointed by H.W. Bush found that you didn't. So that's at least...
Well, it's not quite. Sort of, though. What happened was the one judge dissented, and the other 2 judges asked for more information from me. I had only written about a very small paragraph about that whole VA situation. It was really, the main argument was that, to comply with Oregon state law, which I'm an Oregon medical marijuana patient, I would have to violate federal law. And that's generally all of our arguments, that we risk arrest from the federal government. That's a real threat. But I made this other little argument about the veterans situation, and the 2 judges were very interested in that and wanted to hear more, and the other judge said, no, even asking for more information would be too much. You can't present new evidence. But they didn't consider that new evidence, and they overruled her and allowed me to present my case.
So in this ruling from the judges, they said that basically the DEA was not acting arbitrarily or capriciously in keeping marijuana a Schedule I substance. I've already had my say on how arbitrary and capricious all this is. I was wondering what you might want to tell them.
I actually had to look, I felt like, well, maybe my definition of arbitrary and capricious is wrong. What exactly would be arbitrary and capricious if this isn't? And so I actually went to my law dictionary online here and looked up arbitrary. Arbitrary decision is one made without regard for the facts and circumstances presented, and it connotes a disregard of the evidence. It's maybe used synonymously with tyrannical and despotic, and it implies an element of bad faith. And if that doesn't describe our DEA and how they've acted on medical marijuana, again, I'd love clarification from the court, actually, what would be arbitrary and capricious.
Well, especially, we bring up the fact that part of the qualification, the three-pronged test for something being a Schedule I substance is no currently accepted medical use in the United States, which of course flies in the face of 18 United States that are, recognizing medical use of cannabis. They always seem to go back to the fact that, we said it's not a medicine, so it can't be a medicine.
Evidently, and I think you're right to point out Marinol, and it's actually even more surreal than you give it credit for. I mean, the fact is that it came up in the court in the oral testimony. Joe Elford did a great job, I thought, pointing out the fact that the DEA had lots and lots of positive information about marijuana. They just had it in another book titled Marinol, and that they didn't include any of that evidence in their decision-making process on the thing in the other book called marijuana. And I think that's what's at issue here. It's that most of the information that they considered as positive information for Marinol, they evidently consider as irrelevant to marijuana, even though we're talking about the quote-unquote active ingredient of the plant. It's surreal.
Yeah, like I said earlier, molecules, when they're patented, they do magic.
Yeah, well, evidently it's the sesame seed oil. That's the magic. If you put it in sesame seed oil, all of a sudden it's no longer a drug of abuse, and then it becomes a magical Schedule III, difficult to have any trouble with, evidently, a low abuse potential drug. Given a little thought, though, I don't know how far you've gone down this rabbit hole, but I found it very interesting. Recently, they are producing, and I'm not exactly sure who, but someone out there is producing a gum with CBD, based from the CBD from the plant material of hemp. And of course, hemp is completely legal because it's devoid of what? THC. THC being what? A legal drug that's Schedule III. So follow me down this rabbit hole. If you get pulled over by a cop on the side of the road with some plant material that's suspect, they test it for the legal drug THC. If the legal drug THC is in the otherwise legal plant material, then it's illegal marijuana. If there's no THC in the plant material, then it's hemp and it's legal, including the other constituents like CBD, which are included in the hemp, but ironically are the very reason why the DEA won't allow us to have marijuana, because although the THC is safe, together with those other things that we don't know much about, that's what's dangerous. So it's hard to imagine anything more surreal.
I think my head just blew. My head just exploded listening to that. Oh, my God. Michael Krawitz is speaking to us. He's with Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access. Make sure you look them up on the Google and give them your support. So what do we do now? I mean, does this get appealed again? Does it go to the Supreme Court? Is there a new tack that we take with it? What do you do?
That was actually my first question to Joe Elford, and interestingly, I guess I hadn't thought about it before. I guess you don't want to think about losing and what that means, but we did lose in this appeals process, and now we try to figure out what's next. I guess there are several steps that our legal team will be taking, including asking for a rehearing, and maybe a larger rehearing with the entire panel of that circuit, and then maybe even onward to the United States Supreme Court. So there's actually, I think, some more legal road ahead of us. But I got an email from John Getman, and I think he was very good to point out that it was very good that he pointed out that we really should focus on our elected officials at this point. We have the Congress. The Congress should act on this, and it is well within their duty to do so. This is certainly something that you could take to anyone that said, well, the DEA should reschedule that. Well, we tried, and I think it's safe to say now that this is not going to be the easy course of action for us to get the right handling of cannabis by the federal government.
Yeah, I think you may be right. There's some indications that the judicial branch might be sympathetic to us, but feel their hands are tied by statute. I mean, I think in the Supreme Court's Raich decision, they said something similar to that you have to take it through the Congress.
And I've got at least one member of Congress that's actually interested in doing some legislation. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll see some federal legislation come down the pike. I'd like to see, a standalone piece of legislation to handle this, not part of some, a rider on another bill or some other marijuana thing that does this. It should be, a separate issue that we change the scheduling of marijuana by federal law. And anyone who thinks that, rescheduling cannabis won't do anything because they maybe read an op-ed, that said that it's not going to do anything. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that rescheduling won't do. The marijuana laws are embedded in our federal code in a way that they're not going to disappear just from rescheduling. But rescheduling is certainly you might look at it as the toll booth of the highway that's going to take us where we need to go. And until we get past that rescheduling, a lot of things just aren't going to be able to be done, including ratcheting down some of these horrific penalties at the federal level for marijuana.
Yeah, it is pretty maddening. The this is Anslinger's legacy. It's Nixon's legacy. They made a really tight Controlled Substances Act specifically to withstand this kind of scrutiny. And, one of the other frustrating things about this is knowing that the executive branch, the president, could by executive order just have it rescheduled at any moment, just through the stroke of a pen. Is that not true?
Well, I think that it might be difficult to do that, although I think it might be technically possible. It certainly would be more practical to think of the president through a stroke of the pen, an executive order, calling on the Health and Human Services to reconsider this, to have, like he did just recently, ask for some data, ask for some research to be conducted. He asked for research to be conducted on the use of guns. That's the executive order he just issued. Certainly, that's an obvious example of how he could apply his power here. I don't know that it's something that he feels was within his authority to just reschedule, but I don't think he really needs to. I think he could call upon the executive branch. It struck me today as I was just driving home from the store. We don't have any friends in the executive branch. We have friends in the court. We've had some great, if nothing else, some dissenting opinions from the court. And then we've had great state representation. Gosh, 18 states now have laws, and even in the Congress we've got some good allies. But it strikes me we have no one in the executive branch, and that's rather surreal to me. You remember we had a real friend in the Surgeon General, Joycelyn Elders. Can you even name the Surgeon General of the United States now? I can't.
Oh, boy. I was just going to quiz the listeners on whether they knew the name of their federal representative. Now you stumped,
yeah.
you stumped me with
that's one you should know, but I don't know that the Surgeon General is relevant anymore. They've taken away the authority from anyone who could act on our behalf, or can act on, separate from the power structure that could act on behalf of the American people within the executive branch. I don't know why, I don't know who, but they seem to have been just weeded out.
We're speaking with Michael Krawitz with Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access. He was the lead plaintiff on the rejected Court of Appeals petition today to get marijuana rescheduled. And the timing is kind of interesting here in that the governor of Washington State is in Washington, D.C. today to speak with Eric Holder about how federal and state laws are going to work with respect to marijuana legalization. Interesting timing, coincidence? Do you think these kind of things are planned?
Well, I imagine the governor of Washington State doesn't even know about this ruling yet. Yeah. But it's certainly interesting that they're going to have another conversation pretty soon about this, because if I remember correctly, Washington State was one of 2 or 3 states that the governors actually petitioned separately to reschedule cannabis. And those petitions now, obviously have a lot more meaning in this whole thing now that the appeals court has said what it said. That the states are starting to weigh in on this, and I think that's something that should be building. And if you're out there as an activist, there's a couple of things that you can do at the state level. There are still a couple of states that have medical marijuana laws that have Schedule 1. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but I believe California is one. Still to this day has Schedule 1. In Oregon, as you pointed out, rescheduled to Schedule 2 a few years back. It can still use to reschedule to Schedule 3, in keeping with Marinol, but still, it has at least done that step, and it was due to grassroots activists bringing it to the attention of the legislature, as I remember, that they changed, that you all changed in Oregon. And that's something that really is something doable at the state level. You could bring to your state level representatives and get that done rather easily. Once the state has rescheduled, it's a lot harder for the federal government to say what you were just paraphrasing earlier about how, if the state really meant it to be medical, they would have considered it medical instead of just decriminalizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like you say, it's a rabbit hole, but we'll keep following you all the way down through it until we get back out and things are treated the way they should be in this country. Our veterans, our patients, everyone out here deserves access to the plant that the founders planted on this continent. Thanks, Michael, for being a part of our discussions today. We appreciate you being here.
Great. Thanks for having me on, Russ. Anytime.
All right. When we come back, we're going to have another discussion. We've got Anthony Taylor calling us from the Oregon legislature. He's been lobbying for a while. He's going to tell us what's up, what sort of changes we might expect or attacks to the medical marijuana program, and more. It's the Russ Belville Show. Stick around.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. Marijuana re-legalization is not likely to happen first at the federal level. It's going to happen state by state. We turn now to our 50-state legislatures and assemblies for the Russ Belville Show's Legalization Legislation Update.
All right, folks, welcome back. It's 13 minutes to the top of the hour, and joining us now by telephone, we have Anthony Taylor, who's been lobbying the Oregon legislature, and he's got some updates for us on what we can expect in the upcoming session. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. You know, the first thing I wanted to bring up, of course, the most recent tinkering our legislature did with marijuana laws was with our medical marijuana program, jacking the fees up from $100 to $200, changing the poor people's fee from $20 to $100, and eliminating two of the ways that poor people could qualify for that fee, and additionally creating a brand new $50 grower fee and like a $100 change fee. Can you tell us more about how that happened and if there's going to be any addressing of that in this coming session?
Well, that was a backdoor maneuver at the Joint Ways and Means Committee, and they disregarded the Advisory Committee on Medical Marijuana's fee structure proposal and went ahead with their own and jacked up the prices for everybody so that they could meet budgetary requirements placed on them by the budget constraints, and it will definitely come up this legislative session.
Excellent. I've been checking the OMMP statistics, and I noticed October 2012 statistics showed about 57,000 patients. The January 2013 statistics are showing about 54,000 patients, about a drop-off of 3,000 patients. This is the first time I can remember, except for one other time, that I've seen the medical marijuana patient rolls decline. Do we have any other figures on that, or can you give us any other information as to whether you see that continuing with this high fee structure?
Well, I think with the high fee structure and the economic situation out there right now for a lot of people, I think you'll see some more decreases. It's just put it out of reach for a lot of people that really are being penalized by this, and it's making it so that they just can't get access to their medicine through the legal channels, and now they're forced to not renew their card and go to the black markets to get their product, get their medicine, and that's just unconscionable in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to think that there's 3,000 people walking around now who either are sick people having to be criminals or magically healed themselves.
Yeah, well, as President Obama said, we got to fix that. And so with everybody's help down there in Salem, hopefully we can do that.
Yeah. What other attacks or changes to the medical marijuana program do you see coming up? Are there any bills being sponsored or talked about yet that we need to keep our eye on?
I haven't seen anything from the other side yet. They always try to run something up the flagpole. Mm-hmm. But as of yet, there's nothing has been dropped.
What do you anticipate, though?
I anticipate we might see something that, requires a pediatrician to sign off on a minor's use of medicine, and they're going to try and clamp down on the percentage of THC allowed in any given product and things of that nature.
Yeah. And speaking of minors, sorry to interrupt, but speaking of minors on the program, of course, this has gained a lot of national exposure because of our friend Brave Michaela and her parents, Aaron Purchase and Brandon Krensler, who are speaking out about this and getting on Ricky Lake and these other shows out there. And I just want to make an announcement for our listeners out there. I've just confirmed that next Tuesday, not only will Brandon and Aaron be in the studio, but Brave Michaela herself and her sister will be in the studio. We've got all sorts of special auction stuff. Do you have more on that? Did you know more on that? But yeah, they will be here this next Tuesday. So a week from today, they'll be in studio for those of you who are interested in this story. And Anthony, in speaking to them, one of the things they pointed out to us was their pediatrician wouldn't go along with this. Their pediatric oncologist wouldn't go along with this. So, if the legislature adds that requirement, you could probably eliminate most of the kids that are on the program. Yeah, that would be a sad day for the program. I know that, that the physicians are hesitant in general to get involved with this because of, things that might come down from above, disciplinary wise, and things of that nature. And so they're really hesitant of it. And until we can implement more safeguards in the OMA itself to help further protect them, we're going to run up against that. All right, so we have an idea what the opponents, law enforcement, they might want to see from medical marijuana. Keep the fees high, make it tougher to get cards, and restrict the THC level and so forth. What are advocates proposing? What have you heard from advocates in the community as far as improving or strengthening the OMA? Well, there's a couple of things. Senator Boquist, at the request of Todd Delato, has introduced Senate Bill 281 that adds PTSD to the list of debilitating conditions, and we're optimistic about that bill. We're still waiting to see what committee it goes into, but the amount of literature out there and the quality of the expert witnesses that can testify to its efficacy and to its need among the returning veterans is huge. And I think that as it becomes more and more a social justice issue on that, and the medical issue where, why are we going to throw our veterans into jail for using something that, really helps them with the symptoms of PTSD? Yeah, and in the cases of our veterans from Vietnam and Afghanistan, they were probably smoking some nice stuff over there as it was. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the Afghans have a reputation, don't they?
That's what I've heard. Afghan Kush isn't just a trade name, let me tell you. Anthony, let's take a look at the other side of the reform, and that, of course, marijuana legalization. Washington State passed their 502, and a couple days afterwards, the Oregonians' editorial board calls out the legislature. They say, you guys better legalize, you better do something, because these guys, these dopers, these potheads, I'm paraphrasing, they're going to come back with something later and they're going to pass it. So is there any hope of the legislature addressing legalization?
There has been talk of a referral to address that during the 2014 session, a short session, and something that will be referred to the ballot by the legislature. Now, whether that can get through the House and Senate, I don't know, but the talk is that it will be addressed fully in the next session.
Wow.
And then this session, they're going to deal with regulated supply and increasing the safety factor and the ability of patients to, have reasonable access, reasonable costs, without the providers, the collectives and the safe access centers suffering in retribution like has been going on for the last couple of years here in Oregon and across the country for the medical providers.
All right.
For the card holders.
Okay, and so regulated supply system in the near future, by 2014, possibly legislative referral. For people that don't know, some of these terms, legislative referral is possibly the best possible way we could get to vote on legalization. Normally, you have to put together an initiative, and that requires a whole bunch of signatures, a lot of money, a lot of time, and then you get it on the ballot and then you vote on it. Well, in the case of legislative referral, the legislature just comes up with the initiative, and they put it on the ballot for you. So you don't got to get signatures, you don't got to spend no money, you just got to go out and vote on it. So, that could be a very, very nice outcome for us. Anthony Taylor, one more thing I wanted to get to for sure in this discussion. Of course, there was a lot of national attention to our Attorney General race with Ellen Rosenblum getting a lot of support from us and winning a surprising upset over her opponent. And I'm just wondering, have we heard much from Attorney General Rosenblum on the future of marijuana reform in Oregon? Is she standing by the people that helped get her elected?
I think we will find that will be the case. There are a number of us that are meeting with her legislative liaison here this week, and we are optimistic about the AG's office providing some clarification to other state agencies and being able to support some of the smaller changes that we're proposing to OMA itself.
Excellent. We're looking forward to that. And I know with you and other hardworking activists out there that are advocating for these better changes, we've got a really good chance in the next few years. Anthony Taylor, I want to thank you for joining us on the show, and we'll speak to you again in the future when we get some more updates once they're in session.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. And just want to remind everyone out there, we've got Anthony Taylor, we've got Medigrow Vermont, who calls in for our updates on what's happening in Vermont. And we are looking to build a network of marijuana activists all across the country. We want one in every state capital, paying attention to the legislature. We want to be the Patch or the Examiner of radio news here. So if you would like to be a legislative analyst, an on-site reporter in your state for what's going on with your marijuana activism, just let me know. Go to our contact page at 420radio.org and look for Radical Russ in the list of subjects. Just send me an email through the contact form telling me that you'd like to report on your state, whichever state it might be, and we might be dialing you up one of these days so that you can be the voice of the marijuana nation and let everyone in the cannabis community know how activism is going in your state. I think it's very important. It's why we created 420 Radio. It's part of our mission statement here is to, spread this word across the country and across the world. We've started legalization here in the West, and we're going to spread it eastward until all 50 states are free to use the plant that our founders put on this continent. You can be a part of it. We need your help. And you'll find that if you get involved and you speak out, people around you get involved and they speak out. People in other states go, well, hell, if they can do a podcast from Oklahoma, I can do one from Iowa. I can do one from Kentucky. And if you don't want to do a podcast, just be one of our guests. You can just call in, telephone, Skype, whatever. You don't have to be the Mr. Super Expert or Ms. Super Wonk. Just have a love for this subject, do your due diligence, and just call us up and talk. Be a part of 420 Radio. We'd love to have you here. That's all the time we got for Hour 1. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here. Stay tuned for our next hour, Toker Talk Radio, where you can call in at 971-533-7111. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it.